advanced civilization at the end of the last ice age. This is the claim that Graham Hancock makes in his most recent Netflix series, Ancient Apocalypse. Now, I love this claim. It makes us think of the lost civilizations that we dreamed of as kids, the things that we thought of when we watched Indiana Jones or played Uncharted.
Is it Atlantis? $5 billion in Atlantis. Is it Atlantis?
Compelling hypothesis, one that would need a lot of evidence to support it, but I'm sure if there was a dedicated researcher, they'd be able to put in the legwork. Now, if this hypothesis were proven true, the implications of it would be enormous. Not only for the archaeological world, which would have to reckon with the fact that it has an entire chapter that has just been left out of the books, but also for our modern world, as we could look to the past to find ways to cope with the present as we struggle under the weight of globalization. So what is the evidence for this?
It's a Gartha! Oh my god. Wait, it all makes so much more sense now. It all makes so much more sense now. It's a Gartha. Wait.
A bold claim. Well, luckily for us, Graham Hancock spends 8 episodes of 30 minutes each telling us all of his evidence for this claim.
So is this just a Netflix show of a random schizo dude that was given 8 episodes to just schizo out for half an hour?
And luckily for you, I watched all 8 of those episodes more times than I care to admit. I took a lot of notes, I got a lot of headaches, and I drank a lot, like this.
No!
And so today, ladies and gentlemen, you and I are going to analyze every single one of Graham Hancock's claims. We are going to assess which ones hold water and which ones don't, and at the end be able to determine whether or not there truly is enough evidence to support the theory that there was a lost, advanced, globe-spanning civilization.
Okay, I'm gonna make a guess at the very beginning of this video, and I'm gonna say there probably isn't enough evidence, but maybe my mind will be changed.
The end of the last ice age. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Milo, and goddamn it feels good to be back.
He's back.
Who is Graham Hancock? Oh wait. If you're asking this question, I envy you. Graham Hancock is a person. He is a person who some may call a researcher.
Well, at least we know he's a person.
I am one of those people. But more predominantly than that, Graham Hancock is a writer. His foundational text is called
They all don't really know what they're talking about anyways. Dude.
Prince of the Gods. You may have heard of it. It was published in 1995, and it sets the stage for the theory which he will propose in many of his later works.
I know who Boa Hancock is. Wait, true, she's the hot one from One Piece, right?
Fingerprints of the Gods, Graham Hancock proposes that there was a lost advanced civilization that existed in Antarctica. Now, Graham Hancock apparently really loved this theory because he went on to publish a lot more books.
I mean, it would be cool, but like, you can just write fanfic, you know? You can just make an S fanfic. You don't have to pass it as actual research.
His most recent text, America Before, is one that he ties in a lot with this Ancient Apocalypse show. And now all of these books have one thing in common. They theorize that every civilization that we know of was inspired or started by a lost advanced civilization that ruled the world until the end of the last ice age. It's a big claim. So you might be thinking, well, Graham Hancock must be an archaeologist, right? Well, Graham Hancock does hold a degree in sociology.
Okay, so he's a researcher, writer, and sociologist, so no archaeology whatsoever. You know, all these schizo shows Netflix gives money to, and we can't even get another season of Mindhunter. I don't know what Mindhunter is. I hope it's not this nut show, but I know there's a lot of things that like Netflix unfairly cuts and then gives funding to bullshit.
That is the most important qualification an archaeologist can have. Now, I wouldn't write this one if Graham Hancock didn't bring it up himself multiple times throughout the course of his show, but he frequently likes to remind us that his Wikipedia page lists him as a pseudoscientist. Behold, Graham Hancock...
Wait, does he not know that's a bad thing? Does he not know it's not a good thing to be a pseudoscientist?
Resume. Now, I do put this one in here a little bit facetiously because I want to try and take a balanced and respectful view of the things that Graham Hancock claims, because he does genuinely take his theories very seriously. And whether or not I personally agree with them, it would be bad science for me to ignore them altogether, or to treat them as though his evidence would be any worse.
Do you know that one quote was like, it takes 2 seconds to make up a lie, and like 2 million seconds to disprove that lie? You know that thing where it's like, oh, you can just make up some bullshit in it's like, there's a quote. It doesn't exactly go like this, but like it's like it takes, you can make some bull crap in 2 seconds instantly, but then for people to actually disprove it, they have to like look up the papers and bring the evidence and do the research and blah 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 blah. Like it's basically the gist of it. It's a lot easier to make up some lies than to actually disprove them.
Now, you know who Graham Hancock is, but who is me? Hi, my name's Milo. I'm an archaeologist. An environmental scientist. What else am I?
Archaeologist.
An archaeologist. That's
He actually has qualification. I don't know why I thought he was just a YouTuber. Wait, am I slow? Am I a slow little bat? Because this whole time I thought he was just kind of a YouTuber with a special autistic interest. I didn't think he actually was an archaeologist. Wait. I just thought he was an autistic little YouTuber who just really is into art, like, you know, like what's his name? The guy who ranks animals. The guy with the animals, who I don't think is an actual animal guy. He just learns a lot from it, from the, not Tears Zoo, the other one that we were watching a lot. Cause I know Tears Zoo, but I mean the one that I watched a lot on my YouTube channel. I forget the name. More parts? No. In the past. Casual Geographic. Yes. And more parts, and Casual Geographic. Like, I don't think they have a job in like animals. So I thought Milo was like this, but he's actually an archaeologist.
an excellent idea, Britt.
Is an asshole up there already?
An archaeologist and an asshole.
Hey!
And a raconteur. My job is to tell stories. My job is to tell facts, and that is what I do. Now, I want to talk about this one for a second. Something that Graham Hancock will talk about repeatedly throughout the course of his series is mainstream archaeology. Now, mainstream archaeology is the kind of people who, you know, they sit in front of a blackboard with a pile of dusty textbooks. Oh, fuck. It's sort of the tweed suit and bow tie archaeology that Graham Hancock wants you to think all archaeologists are. You know, the kind that don't listen to anyone else and are totally set in their ways. Well, lucky for you, I am not a mainstream archaeologist. My job is making YouTube videos, and I'm still completely jacked full of early 20s hormones that make me completely incapable of working with other people. So mainstream is something you do not have to worry about me doing. So you might be wondering, Milo, why are you even bothering to do this? Couldn't you be doing something more productive with your life? Absolutely. But I'm gonna do this anyway. At the end of the day, I would go so far as to say that Graham Hancock is a scientist. He has a hypothesis, and he is doing experimentation and research in order to see if he can prove that hypothesis. And I would be a bad scientist to ignore that claim outright. Now,
Wait, does it mean I'm a scientist? Because sometimes, I told you, I had a cup, and I had some tea, and it molded. And I did the research and experimentation of leaving the mold in there for a month to see how much it grows. And then I noted my findings by telling them to chat. I'm literally a scientist. Wait! I'm adding that to my resume. I'm putting VTuber, entrepreneur, and scientist.
purpose
And professional gamer, because I technically do make money while playing games. Professional gamer, VTuber, entrepreneur, and scientist.
if the question is a little bit ridiculous. It is through these kind of ridiculous questions that so many of the most important fundamental ideas of science have been discovered, which is why I want to take a critical lens to what Graham Hancock has to say. Like it or not, you are watching this video because you're participating in science. You want to further understand a topic and develop your own opinions on it, a process which is at the core of the scientific method. And I want to be able to facilitate that by applying some of my knowledge so that you can better inform your decisions. That's my honorable reason for doing this, I guess. My petty reason for doing this is because Graham Hancock spends this entire series whining about how nobody listens to him. Not only did I take the time to listen to you, but I am going to tell you in explicit detail everything that I think about your theory. Let's get started. How do you prove?
Dude, the monkey paws curling. Holy, oh my god, diabolical pause frame. Diabolical pause frame for me. I swear, that's not my hand. My hand is down here. I'm not touching it, I swear. That's my elbow. That's my elbow over there. But, I forgot what I was gonna say. I forgot what I was gonna say.
A lost civilization. That's a big ask, isn't it? It says this entire
I thought he said that's a big ass, isn't it? I am actually... We're cooking. We're cooked. We're cooked. We had it on the mind, and he said big ask. Oh God, don't call HR, please.
Theory is predicated on whether or not Graham Hancock's evidence holds any water. I think it is important that we all understand what criterion we are going to use to judge his evidence. And this is something that is very important that I want us to not lose track of throughout the entire course of this lecture. We need reliable dates. These would be things like cultural layers. A cultural layer is a stratigraphic layer that contains evidence of human habitation. This can be anything from charred animal bones and fire pits to stone bifaces or other signs of human habitation. It is by these layers that you are actually able to prove that a group of people was there for any period of time. So we need to see cultural layers that all have similar contents to one another that are deposited around 12,800 years ago, which is where Graham Hancock says this ancient civilization falls into our human history timeline. Now, building off that a little bit, we would also need to...
Guys, genuine question. Were humans alive during the Ice Age? Or did the Ice Age movies lie to me? Yes? Okay, good. The Ice Age movies did not lie to me. So, wait, so was the ancient civilization was meant to be until the end of the Ice Age? But we already know that humans were there during the Ice Age. So is the claim that there were other humans that were better than the ones that we know about that ended at the end of the Ice Age?
See? Material culture. Material culture falls under the same category as cultural layers. This is going to be things like statues, tools, architectural styles, writings, carvings, motifs, etc. You know, if you find the same language in two different places, those two places are probably related to one another. Similarly, if you find evidence of worship of the same god and whatnot, you can probably associate those two sites with one another. Building a little bit off that more, we would need to see structural evidence. Structural evidence would be any actual physical remnants of this lost civilization. You can't just say it existed, you have to actually show it. Foundations, walls, roads, etc., etc., etc. Now, the most important piece of evidence that you could possibly have, the be-all, end-all to prove that your lost civilization exists, is DNA, genetic evidence. If you show me a bunch of skeletons from different parts of the world, you sequence their DNA, and you're able to prove that they're related to one another, then you have convinced me that there was a civilization that managed to conquer the globe. This is the criterion that the world would need to see in order to prove that Graham Hancock's claim is true. Are we all on this same page? I think we're all on the same page. Now, thankfully,
I was thinking of those too. You know, when I thought about his hypothesis that it was a lost civilization, I too thought of cultural layers, material culture, structure, evidence, and DNA. I thought of those.
Shouldn't be that hard to find. Again, Graham Hancock's claim is that they conquered the world 12,000 years ago. So clearly, if they
basically, he was claiming like there's a Roman Empire, but like before the Ice Age. But like, how advanced are we talking? Are we just talking like Roman Empire advanced, or are we talking like the phone? Like, did they have the phone? Is he claiming they had the phone?
That big of a grip, their evidence should be everywhere, shouldn't it? Well, let's look for it. All right, how's this series gonna work? Let's go.
We're talking the boat? Wait, were humans below the Ice Age that advanced that they didn't have a boat?
Over one last...
Bro, I swear, if I was like a old-ass human, like a Neanderthal human, right? And there was no boat, I feel like I could think of the boat. Like, I feel like I, as a human being, if I was born and no one told me about the boat and I didn't know the boat existed, I could come up with the boat and the wheel. With what you know now? No, if I didn't know any of it, I could come up with the boat. I would just see a log float on the water. I'd be like, what if I made more logs and I would sit on it?
Agenda thing before we get this thing started. This is syllabus week. So because Graham Hancock talks about a lot of stuff throughout the course of this series, I think it's important that we start with some context. Because without context, Graham Hancock will capitalize on the fact that a lot of people don't have a knowledge base in some of the topics he's talking about, and it allows him to, I'll say, strategically mislead. So most importantly, the first thing I want to talk about is the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. This is something which Graham Hancock uses as a fundamental building block for his theory, and is something which you deserve to know the truth of before getting into the brunt of this video. And then after we get that housekeeping out of the way, I am going to go over...
I want to test something. Okay, here we go.
Every single one of the episodes of Ancient Apocalypse in order and talk about every single point that Graham Hancock makes. I have a 40-page script, and because of that, this video is going to be shot in multiple parts. Now you might be thinking, Milo, why don't you just make one 2.5 hour long video instead of shooting this in multiple parts? A, no. B, it's called getting that bag. If Graham Hancock can make an 8-episode series about nothing and get a Netflix deal, I can make a multi-part series on YouTube and you'll be able to click through the episodes, I promise. Now, at the end of all of this, I'm gonna talk about my conclusion. We're going to assess all of the evidence from every single one of these episodes and see if it holds any water.
Yes, this is only part 1. Holy, part 1 is 54 minutes.
Not least, we're gonna talk about the implications of this show, because I think that's something that not a lot of people have talked about yet. What does this show mean for the world of science and the world of fact? And now with that ominous intro out of the way, ladies and gentlemen, let's get this semester started with the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis.
We don't know about the Younger Dryas
We'll do this quickly so that we can get into the meat and potatoes of this as quickly as we possibly
We don't know about that.
can. We are in an ice age. Oh, it doesn't look like an ice age out there. I don't see any snow. Well, too bad, because it is an ice age. We are currently in an interglacial period, an ice age that has lasted for the last 2 million years. Now, when people say the end of the last ice age,
Are we in an ice age? Wait, what? But there's no ice. How are we in an ice age when there's no ice? Technically. I thought the ice age was when it was like all frozen. He just explained it? He did? He just said technically we're in an ice age. He didn't explain anything. He just said we are. He didn't explain it. There's ice in the poles and that's enough for it to be an ice age? Okay, let's see. Maybe he will explain it, but he hasn't yet. Don't gaslight me. Don't gaslight my little bat brain. He has not explained it yet. Why are you confidently incorrect? Why are you saying he has? Yeah, like that's enough? Yeah, that's not an explanation. That's just stating it. I'm sure he will explain it, but like I wanted you to explain it, chat. And then you're telling me he already explained it, you gaslighter little shit. I will actually scroll back a little bit in case I missed something.
that has lasted for the last 2 million years.
Yeah, he just says we're currently in an ice age.
Now, when people say the end of the last ice age, it's sort of a colloquial way of referring to 10,000 years ago, which is the start of this interglacial period. Glaciers do this. Whee!
Okay, wait. Wait, turns out I'm a lot further behind on this topic than I thought. So I thought the ice age was when everything was iced over. You know? What is the definition of an ice age then? Come on, go on, Jesus, tell us. Because clearly he already explained. So tell us what he already explained. Since clearly he already did. Please do explain. If there's any permanent ice, it's an ice age. Really? Really? I didn't know that. They're using a weird definition of an ice age. Anytime on the poles are frozen. Really? Is that the definition of an ice age? Damn. I didn't even know we're still in ice age. Me either. This is where I found out. I just wanted to ask some questions, and all of a sudden, Chatter Cold Jesus Please says, well, oh, we already explained it. We already said it. There's times when there's no ice. Well, at that point, I feel like we should change it, because normally when you name something as a thing, as a phenomenon, it's because it's an outlier, right? It's an outlier. So like, because it's more times to be more times than not, it's ice age, right? So I think we should, instead of calling the times we're in ice ages, we should call the times where it's not an ice age, wet ages. You know, we should call the time where it's not, like, ice age should just be the norm, and when the poles melt is the wet age.
As the temperature fluctuates during a glacial period, we will get points where there is ice and no ice. Now, an important thing to note is that an ice age is defined by whether or not there is ice on the poles. So,
okay, yeah, I should have just unpaused the video. Holy shit. Should I just unpause the video?
Yes, just because the climate has fluctuated quite a lot in the last 2 million years, the fact that we are about to have no more ice on our poles is not a normal thing. I feel the need to say that because every time I talk about the ice age, someone's like, oh, look, it's been changing for thousands of years. Fuck out of here. So anyway, we are currently in an interglacial period. This is when the ice caps have receded to the poles, leaving much of the...
Okay. So it's like part of the ice age, but like not a full ice age, because the ice caps have receded to the poles, which means I was right that there are times when the ice is everywhere.
Rest of the world more or less ice-free. About 10,000 years ago, the last ice age comes to an end. You can have a look at this sick graph showing the global temperature during the end
So technically, when we say the ice age ended, is like it receded, but then how are we still in one?
of the ice age, but you'll notice on this graph that there is a strange dip, a point when the temperature plunges again. This is called the Younger Dryas period. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into the Younger Dryas, but if you want to learn more about it, there's a great video by Stefan Milo. I highly recommend you check him out, especially because I'm Milo and the back half of him is Milo as well. But the biggest thing to take away is that while this change looks very abrupt on a graph, in the scale of human lifespan, this took a really long time. Now, at the end of the last ice age, sea levels were slowly rising. About 14,000 years ago, indicated here, the sea levels were rising by about that much. That's about 20 millimeters per year, or about 0.8 inches per year. Then by about 11...
Whoa, that's huge! Whoa! Whoa, that's huge! 0.8 inches, oh my god! Damn! Everyone's drowning.
1,500 years ago, the rate of sea level rise had dramatically decreased.
Okay.
To about that much. About 4 millimeters, or about
Whoa! Still massive, still average though. Still average. Like, that one over there, that's huge. That one's average.
1.5 inches. Needless to say, this is a amount of sea level rise that would be infinitesimal on the human perception scale. But then, by about 11,450 years ago, something wild happened. It is colloquially referred to as Meltwater Pulse 1b. A great name, I know. Scientists aren't good at naming anything. It all just sounds so lame. Why didn't they call it something cool, like the big one? Now, the big one was big. So what happened during Meltwater Pulse 1b is all of the water, which had been melting off of the continent-spanning glaciers, had been pooling in enormous glacial lakes. These things were gigantic. Glacial Lake Missoula on its own, which took up most of the space between the Rocky Mountains and the Bitterroot Mountains, or the Sawtooth Mountains in Idaho and Wyoming, held more water than two of the Great Lakes combined. I can't remember which ones. We'll put it up here. Either way, the amount of water that was suddenly in the middle of North America was absolutely enormous. But as the glaciers receded, these lakes began to drain, and they dumped an enormous amount of cold, fresh water into the oceans. Now, when this happened, it wreaked environmental havoc. One has to look no farther than the climate today to see how small changes can have a massive impact on weather patterns. So when all this water was dumped into the sea all of a sudden, two things happened. Firstly, the temperatures plunged as these global circulatory systems ground to a halt. And secondly, the
science is crazy.
sea level skyrocketed. Now, skyrocketed is a little bit of a hyperbole in this case. At its peak during the Younger...
Whoa! Oh my god. Nah, like, that would just not fit. Like, that's just insane. Like, dude, that would just, like, kill you. That would just kill you.
Dryas, the sea levels were rising by about 40 millimeters per year, which is about 1.7 inches.
1.7 inches. Okay, I'm gonna refresh the video. It's not working. Do remember that I'm still on rented Wi-Fi, so...
Massive impact on weather patterns. So when all this water was dumped into the sea all of a sudden, and secondly, in this case, per year, which is about 1.7 inches. Should probably be labeling these. There we go. These ones are so small, they don't matter. And now that...
Okay.
Is a lot. It's still not enough for people to really notice, but if you lived on a coastal city for 30, 40, 50 years, you'd probably notice that a lot of shit was underwater by that point. If the water continued to rise at that rate, which it didn't. For much of the Younger Dryas, the sea level rise was around that much, 0.3 inches, or around 7 millimeters. Now you might be wondering, Milo, what does all this matter? Why are you telling us this? Because rapid sea level rise is something which Graham Hancock uses as a fundamental building block of his hypothesis. So it's important that you have an understanding of what was actually going on during the Younger Dryas, essentially. The Younger Dryas is, I don't know, only the single most studied climatic event in human history. So we have so much data on it that trying to act like it's some great mystery is really just sort of bending the truth.
Crazy. There's a whole different world out there, because I've never heard of the Younger Dryas.
Now, with that being said, It's time for episode 1. Ancient Apocalypse, episode 1, Ghosts of a Drowned World. Where are we? There we go.
So wait, it is Atlantis then.
Lord, give me strength. It's fighting back. Ancient Apocalypse has about the strongest start of any TV show I have ever seen in my life. It quite literally opens with calling Graham Hancock a journalist who is picking a fight with academia. You might be saying, Milo, oh god, I still fucking water in my nose. Give me a second. Now you might be thinking, Milo, isn't this show about archaeology? What the hell is he doing talking about how he's just like a pariah to academia? Now you'd be right. This is a show that's supposed to be about archaeology, but you will notice right off the bat, the actual content of this show is Graham Hancock setting the stage to talk about how much everyone doesn't like him. And this is a theme that you will see play out through almost every running minute of this entire series. And the best way to put it is this. Graham Hancock is more concerned with being a martyr than having his beliefs be accepted. Now, right off the bat, he does admit that he is not a scientist or an archaeologist, which I do appreciate him doing. But also, I think it leaves a bad taste in our mouths for when we imagine someone who is an amateur at anything. I completely agree with him. I don't think that you should need a degree in order to be an archaeologist. Being passionate and conducting your own research is not something that should be synonymous with spitting in the face of professionals. Now, pretty quickly into the episode, he gives us his thesis. That there was a lost advanced civilization at the end of the last ice age.
Okay.
And he immediately tells you how much he really truly believes in this by going on to say that this idea is upsetting to the mainstream archaeologists. The experts who he says insist that only simple hunter-gatherers existed at the end of the last ice age. And that because he has these feelings...
Yeah, so he was claiming that they had the iPhone.
He is enemy number 1 to archaeologists. Now, Graham Hancock, I assure you...
Yeah, exactly. Upsetting equal true. If you ever say something that upsets the majority of people, it must be true. That being said, chat, you are all, oh... I can't even think of anything to say that you wouldn't agree with, bro. Cause I want to say something like you're all ugly. But knowing you, chat, a bunch of you would just be like, yeah, that's true. And that's just not fun. That's just not fun. I want it to be something that's like, that you wouldn't want me to say, but at this point, I don't think there's anything like that.
You are not enemy number 1 to archaeologists. If you've ever seen any of the Indiana Jones movies, you know who enemy
what is
number
going on? Do I gotta watch in 720p?
1 is to archaeologists, and I hope you're not one of those
I guess
guys.
I do.
Now, as he gets the ball rolling here, he really wants to set the tone for what his opposition believes. He is trying to press this idea that archaeologists think that hunter-gatherers were these simple people who, you know, couldn't really do anything, which is the most foolish thing I have ever heard in my entire life. Throughout the course of this show, it becomes abundantly clear
I think they were, because they didn't think of the boat, and I would think of the boat.
that Graham Hancock hasn't spoken to an archaeologist in about 30 years. The hunter-gatherer period of human history is one of the most complex points, in my opinion, and one that no one belittles to that extent. This is a way of thinking that was common in, I don't know, 1965, but if you talk to anyone who actually studies this in the last 40 years, no one would ever tell you that they are simple hunter-gatherers. But after complaining about the arrogant and patronizing attitudes of mainstream academia, he finally gets into the episode. For episode 1, Graham Hancock takes us to Gunung Padang.
Gunung Padang?
In Indonesia. Gunung Padang is a terraced mountaintop made out of columnar basalt slabs, and it's a truly
Basalt. Minecraft reference.
beautiful sight. This is one of the first times I've seen it ever actually spotlighted in a real documentary, dare I say. And it's really wonderful to know that this spectacular sight is something which is now available to a wider audience. It's just a shame that it's presented like this. Firstly, Graham Hancock marvels at how large the stones are. He claims that there are about 50,000 stones at Gunung Padang, each one of them weighing about 1/3 of a ton. That's a lot, right? 1/3 of a ton? It says ton, it's gotta be big.
Ton.
Oh, all right. That camera's offline. You're gonna just have to deal with it. Now, 1/3 of a
Why would you say 1/3 of a ton rather than saying the actual weight in kilograms?
ton is about 600 pounds. Sounds a lot less impressive when you say it like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's just to be like, wow, 1/3 of a ton. But that's a ton.
That isn't it. Now, don't get me wrong, 600 pounds is still stupidly heavy, but considering the heaviest deadlift ever was like 1,100 pounds, you would probably just need a couple strong dudes to be able to move one of those. If you...
Couple strong dudes, eh? Couple strong dudes. Pipi, is that you? Yeah, the man on the screen is me. It's one of my old videos. I'm just watching it over. That's me.
If you were really ambitious, you probably wouldn't even need wheels for it or a pulley system. To put this number into a little bit more perspective, the blocks of the Great Pyramid of Giza are about 2.5 tons each.
Damn.
You like that? That's pretty good, right?
Whoa.
The Moai heads on Easter Island weigh about 15
Yeah, I still don't know how those happened. It gotta be aliens.
tons each. I don't think I can draw a Moai. Wait a second.
Come on, I believe.
15 tons each.
You can
And the
trace it.
stones at Stonehenge weigh a absolutely insane 25 tons. No, I
Gee.
promise I'm not just trying to dunk on the people who built
Wait,
Gunung
how did they get that together, Dad? Wait. Aliens.
Padang, because I'm sure that moving
Giants.
600-pound pieces of columnar basalt is no small feat. But Graham Hancock is trying to use a tactic here where he makes this sound way more impressive than it actually is, so that you're almost grasping for a reason to justify it in your head, as if it couldn't have happened unless there's some miraculous conclusion. But no, around this time, people were
phone.
working with enormous
They
stones.
had the
These people would have been
iPhone.
capable of doing it too. Let's keep going. Now, the first layer of this site is dated to around 500 BC. And the second layer dates to around 5,200 BCE. Now, if this date is proven to be correct, that means that this site would be a staggering 10,000 years old. And you know what? I'm totally here for it. Absolutely. Graham Hancock then goes on to say that there is no evidence that at this time the people of this area were anything other than simple hunter-gatherers. Well, I gotta say, if they built that, apparently not. It's ironic that he speaks like he's trying to dismantle the
Okay, so the hypothesis is that because they built the terrace, then they must have had the iPhone.
idea that hunter-gatherers were simple and primitive, but without that preconception, his idea completely falls apart. He wants you to believe that archaeologists think that hunter-gatherers weren't capable of doing anything like this, because once you accept the reality that they were capable of doing stuff like this, then this isn't a mystery anymore. Hello, Louis.
I mean, they
You want
clearly
something to say to
were.
the
It's
people?
there. They clearly were capable. Everything that he's done is done by not being a pussy. Speaking of, look at it.
I know.
Aww.
You're the reason I have to use a lint roller every time I go on set, Louis. I hope you're proud of yourself. You get a little cameo in every video. Now, he also says that these columnar basalt stones are cut. It was a little thing, but I felt the need to include it because it's wrong. They didn't cut the columnar basalt. Columnar basalt cracks. It comes in these like massive pillars. But now is when we get into my favorite part of this episode. Pyramids. You love them, you hate them. You can fill them
Yeah!
with mummies or you can fill them with Bass Pro Shops merch. So it's important that we write down what Graham Hancock's definition of a pyramid is, because it's very important. A series of terraces that rises to a summit. The Graham Hancock Dictionary definition of a pyramid. Now, the reason that I bring up this quote is because this quote is going to be very useful in like 2 episodes. So please
Okay.
write this one down because it will be on the test.
I'm not writing it
Because
down.
of this definition, Graham Hancock qualifies Gunung Padang as being a pyramid. Now, let's have a look at Gunung Padang. That doesn't look like a pyramid to me. That looks like a terraced hill. But I guess if a series of terraces is part of your definition of a pyramid, then sure, it's a pyramid. It's
Seeing a pyramid is a geometrical shape. So, if you want to call a building a pyramid, it would have to be a building that is in the shape of a pyramid.
at this point when Graham Hancock brings up something very mysterious. A secret chamber? This is what the liberal media doesn't want you to know about.
Whoa!
Beneath the ruins of Gunung Padang, there is some
Dude, I can't help but hear gooning Padang, bro. So I keep hearing him say gooning, man. I keep saying him say gooning.
sort of cavity which can be seen on ground penetrating
Gunung
radar. So
Padang.
what is it? Is it a burial chamber? Is it full of treasure? Is it the lost city of Atlantis? I'd be willing to put my money on it is none of those things. And the reason why is a little detail which Graham Hancock conveniently leaves out of his documentary. The astute of you could probably already put it together. You know that Gunung Padang is built out of columnar basalt. You know the environment in which columnar basalt is formed.
I'm not astute. I'm not even gonna pretend. I'm not even gonna pretend when this pause I have any idea.
Gunung Padang is on a volcano. Now what happens
Oh.
inside of volcanoes? Lava tubes.
Lava tube.
tubo? How did I manage to do that? Lava tubo, lava tubes, chambers, all this stuff. It all happens inside of volcanoes. And because Gunung Padang is built on top of a volcano, I would be willing to bet that that mysterious...
Wait, I should have known from Minecraft basalt is volcanic. It's true. Basalt is in lava in the nether. Wait.
mysterious chamber, which is far below the level of the
That's
pyramid, is
it's like the
probably
gaps. Volcanic tubes are like the gaps in the basalt biome in Minecraft that you have to parkour over.
lava tube. Now, again, I don't know. I am not going to sit here and claim that I know what it is, because who knows, maybe it is the lost city of Atlantis. But my point is you can't try and wrap this thing in mystery when there is a very logical reason that it probably...
I mean, you clearly can. He just did it. You're the one that has to spend hours debunking it, but he did.
isn't a lost, chamber. There's a little saying that I think is going to be very important throughout this series. If you hear hooves, think horses, not zebras. So if you see a chamber underground on a volcano, think lava tube, not secret place where they're hiding the true city that was once there 12,800 years ago by the lost civilization.
Oh, I get it. I get a horse example now.
That I'm looking for evidence for. He then goes back into his rhetoric about how nobody thinks
I
that
think a better example would have been actually if you see hooves, think horses, not unicorns. Because zebras are real animals. So actually, I do think I made it better. Think horses, not unicorns.
gatherers would be able to build this, which is stupid. But then
Or
we get into
Pegasi.
the smash hit part of this episode. The part where he claims that in a core sample of drilling, they found evidence that there is a layer of this pyramid which dates back to 24,000 years ago, making it nearly twice as old as the next oldest megalithic structure on
Dude,
Earth.
after like 3,000 years, I just no longer fathom the multiplication of the years. It's like the power scaling is insane in history. So after a bit, I just don't really like, were the dinosaurs and the humans together? I know it's not true, but like, might as well be. There's too many numbers.
Do I doubt that they found a layer which is dated to 24,000 years? Not in the slightest. Do I know if it...
Sword Mountain, I understand Indonesian, so it's that. Wait, that's what school was? That's what Gunung Padang means? Damn, we have an Indonesian correspondent.
It's a cultural layer or not where there was anyone actually living. I have no idea because they never talk about it. The wonderful thing about dating material is that, at least with radiocarbon dating, which I presume is what they did here, you can do it with any natural material, meaning that it doesn't need to be something that was modified by people at any point. But now, let's say that they did unearth a cultural layer that was dated to 24,000 years ago. They never tell us what was in this cultural layer, which would literally be the most important piece of evidence in proving his point. Let's say you got a mountain. It's Indonesia. I mean,
Everyone knows that when you find a super secret thing that nobody's ever found before, what you do is don't show what you found. Because, otherwise people are gonna steal your findings. So you just gotta gatekeep, girl boss. Gatekeep. Guys, if you ever find dinosaur bones in your backyard, never show them to scientists. You gotta keep those for yourself.
Resemblance is uncanny. Then at the top, you got some hunter-gatherers, they make their little fire.
Dating material? Is it the same as wife material? Oh, dude, yes, it is.
Voila. Time goes on.
And Milo's definitely dating material.
Hunter-gatherers go away, they all die, and, their little cultural pile is left there. Over time, vegetation grows, the mountain is covered in more and more dirt, and then you get some more people who show up who start to build with their columnar basalt layers and make their little, mound on top. Then you get Graham Hancock standing at the top like that, and he asks someone who drilled down and found this layer and then dated it. I'm gonna act in good faith, because I know that Graham Hancock didn't get this date because he doesn't actually do archaeology. So this had to be gathered by a real archaeologist. And I would assume that they're not going to lie and would actually, check their information before publishing it. So my prediction is that they found a cultural layer at that site dated to 24,000 years ago, and Graham Hancock was willing to associate that site with the pyramid that is now built on top of it without realizing the fact that people really like to be on top of mountains. Either way, I think that
People do like to be on top of mountains, man. People do like mountains. Wait, so his claim is that from 24,000 years ago to 15,000, where the pyramid is dated, there was the same civilization there, and it's like all part of the same. Like for like 20,000 years, it was the same civilization. That's insane. Civilizations barely last like 10.
this is a very flimsy argument to support the idea that there was a global world-conquering civilization.
Okay, maybe not 10, but like 1,000. Maybe civilizations do last more than 10 years. But like 1,000. Yeah, the longest we know is 1,000.
At the end of the last ice age, moving swiftly along. For my next trick, Graham Hancock will go to... Oh look, there he goes. You want to read? Okay, sweet. Non-Madol is an archaeological site on Pohnpei Island. And the reason why it gets lumped into this, lost civilization hypothesis so much is because it is very slightly below the waterline. Graham Hancock's theory is that his
Wait, so he thinks all of these places he's visiting, they're all connected to the same civilization.
Civilization was wiped out during the Younger Dryas impact. The sea level rose and, drowned them all off the face of the earth. However, Non-Madol is... bless you. However, Non-Madol is only very slightly below the waterline, and most of that reason is because it was built to be intentionally in the water. It is made up of a series of locks and canals and places where people were supposed to boat through. Now, archaeologists have been able to date this site to be about 900 years old. They know this because they have gotten uranium series dating and have been able to date it with other cultural layers around the island. Science. 900 years old, or about 1100 CE. Now, Graham Hancock has an alternative hypothesis. He claims that Non-Madol is...
Wait, so this is only 1,000 years old?
Actually 12,800 years old. Now that's a big claim. We're willing to push back the date of this construction.
Yeah, so he's pushing it back so it's the same time as the other one that was like minus 10,000.
By 12 times. So you need a lot of evidence to be able to back something like that up. So what is Graham Hancock's evidence that this site is actually 12 times older than the archaeological dates say it is? His evidence is that it's slightly underwater, and that his hypothesis would be supported better if it was older than that. But it isn't, so there's that, I guess. Now the thing that I think is the most interesting about Non-Madol,
the kitty is distracting
again, it's
me.
a site that not a lot of... Bye, Louie. It's a site that not a lot of people talk about, unless it's associated with conspiracies. The very first time that I heard of Non-Madol, it was reviewing some stupid TikTok. And I didn't even know what island it was on until I did research for this video. And it was only after doing research for this video that I was actually able to learn the history of the island and the people that lived on it. Non-Madol was the seat of government for an entire empire. They were called the Saudler? I don't know if I spelled that right. S-A-U-D.
Okay, but did they have the iPhone? Did they have the iPhone and did they have giants to lift that big rock?
It's the Saudler dynasty, and I believe they were called the Saudler dynasty because the king, the monarch, was the Saudler. If I'm saying any of these words wrong, please feel free to correct me. Again, I only know about this site after
makes sense. Those Saudler Samsung. That's my bad.
Doing research on it for this video. But anyway, Non-Madol was the seat of government for, this entire dynasty. The site dates to about 1180 CE, not only from archaeological data, but from the data and the stories of the people who actually live there. Just because a site was not mentioned in your archaeology textbooks does not mean that it was created by a lost civilization. The people who are descended of those who built this site still live on the island.
That's crazy.
It's just disrespectful, honestly. And it's such a shame because so many of the people who are watching this series, it's probably the first time they've heard of Non-Madol. And I mean, look at it. It's fascinating. It screams to that piece of us that wants to know about the past, but the problem is it's being presented to us in a way that is masked in this pseudo-mystical bullshit. And it's so frustrating. The first time people hear about this, it is not being presented factually. It's not being presented by those who are actually responsible for building it and telling their stories and telling the truth and the facts of the site. Okay, tone it down. We're doing this respectfully? Respectfully. We're on camera. Now, Graham Hancock actually ends this episode with a phenomenal point. Goodness knows what has been lost to rising sea levels. And Graham, you are absolutely right. Because for most of human history, the sea level
the sea giveth and the sea taketh
been drastically lower. And being a species that likes to build our nests alongside coastal areas, a lot of those have been lost. Graham Hancock expresses his dismay towards archaeologists no longer doing research and potentially finding
human be like, big mountain, hill, colon between hills, seaside.
More about these underground chambers or other historical aspects of the site. But this is, frankly, a bit of a foolish thing to say. To blame archaeologists for not continuing this work is like blaming construction workers for not fixing potholes. It's frankly not up to them. Every single one of us has to answer to someone higher up. Every single one of us is at the whim and the mercy of however much funding we get. So Graham, if you truly are frustrated by how little digging archaeologists get to do, welcome to the club. But I do hear that you just came across a pretty penny from a particular Netflix deal. So if you're willing to fund a dig, Graham Hancock, I'd be willing to lead it. I know you already have my email, so feel free to respond when you're ready to launch. Graham Hancock ends this episode by saying that we are a species with amnesia, referring to the fact that we have lost or forgotten a huge chapter of our history. It's a compelling claim, and one that he will spend the next 7 episodes working to back up. That is the end of episode 1.
Again, the thing is that it would be cool, but it's just like write a fanfic, write a sci-fi novel.
But ladies and gentlemen, believe me when I say that we are just getting started. Whoa, Milo, that jacket is awesome. I can hear you saying from through the computer.
I was literally gonna make fun of the jacket. I don't know if I'm glad or not he addressed it, because the first thing I was gonna say, I was gonna be like, what is that?
Screen. You know, it is awesome. It's awesome and distracting. So distracting that you probably didn't even notice that I'm here to give you an ad read. I want to wear this again.
Oh, he got me!
Oh my god, the inside of it is like fully gold.
It's gold
oh yeah,
on the
so much better. Are you
inside.
kidding me? Because today's sponsor is Ground News. Are you sick of the news? Are you sick of all the clickbait and the terrible articles and the immense biases
I'm sick
everywhere
of
you look?
everything, man.
Well, welcome to America, baby. The problem with news is that it is manipulative of
I will
algorithms.
not
It tries
skip
to
the
take
ads. It's
advantage
called
of the things that you
ethical
look at
reaction.
and just tries to feed you more of it.
guys,
And
I'm
considering that
sorry,
the whole
I'll
thing
start
I
in a
do here
second.
is try and talk about facts, I am sure you know how I feel about only being fed one opinion. But that is why I like Ground News so much. They are the first news comparison platform, meaning that they are providing you with a truly unbiased look at, well, all the news. Ground News will show you multiple news articles on the same topic from different sources. It will also indicate the biases into which these sources lie, allowing you to be able to understand if you are being fed a biased source, a balanced source, or a biased source in the other direction.
Let's
Now,
go,
Ground News is
W.
great because they give you, your classic news feed and all that, but one of the things that I personally really love about it is looking at a very
never
politically
check the
polarizing
news,
topic and seeing
but
how
this
all
sounds
sides of
great
the political spectrum are
for
reporting
those
on
who
it.
do.
It never ceases to amaze me how well different political parties can change a news headline to fit their agenda. But Ground News isn't only for the US. They offer international news, which is one of my favorite things because I know this is hard to believe, but there are other countries out there.
I prefer to know
and
nothing
by
that
allowing
goes
its
on
users to
and be
customize their
happy.
feeds, I have customized my feed to have not only United States news, but also international news, again, all covered from different sides of the political spectrum. I have personally found that this allows me to just draw better conclusions as to what's going on in the world around me, and also allows me to be able to spot when I hear other people whose opinions seem to lean towards one side, even though they say that they're unbiased. And it really goes to show just how much unbiased news really does lean in one direction or another. So if you are looking for a better way to get your news, then look no further than this link, a link that is also in the description. There is a free version of Ground News, or you can get the subscription version, which gets you access to all the, fancy frills. But needless to say, Ground News has the endorsement of Cool Jacket Milo. Once again, I'd like to thank Ground News for sponsoring this video. You can check them out with the link in my description. And now, let's get right back into it.
We're back.
All right, open your textbooks to chapter, where the hell is it? Chapter 2. Let's make this happen. It begins with Graham Hancock saying, "Could we have forgotten our own story? I am Graham."
Dude, his hair is so girthy that it literally sits like this to the sides without like a hairband.
Hancock, and archaeologists hate me for trying to find out. No, Graham, archaeologists don't hate you for trying to find out. They hate you because you're a whiny little bitch. No, Graham Hancock, nobody hates you. As I mentioned in episode 1, it is interesting that he starts off every single one of his episodes in trying to make himself seem like a pariah. I think he's trying to make—
It's like the clickbait, because there are some people that literally eat this up. There are some people that are convinced there are things like scientists won't tell you, and as soon as they find someone that claims they're against mainstream science, they will eat that shit up. So genuinely, I think it's just a whistle for the audience of people that eat that shit up. Like flat earthers, they say the same thing.
to come across in some way that he's some upstanding, presenter of the truth. It doesn't really come across like that, though. It comes across as just—
I would burn a city to learn the secrets of his routine, brother. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I'm pretty sure that's 99% genetics, man. I don't think any hair routine will get you that.
being a little bit more childish. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. In this episode, Graham Hancock is taking us to the Great Pyramid of Cholula. Now, as I was putting together this episode, I was, working on scripting a whole thing to tell you about the Great Pyramid of Cholula, and then I was like, I am not qualified enough to give you the full rundown of it, but I do know someone who is. Hello,
We
Dr.
got an
McCafferty. Can you hear me?
interview.
Hello there. Well, I'm an emeritus professor from the University of Calgary. I
Dr.
have
Droff.
a PhD from the State University of New York at Binghamton, and much of my career has been focused on questions about the culture history of Cholula, Mexico. About 25 years ago, when I followed migration stories about indigenous populations leaving Cholula and going to Nicaragua. And so most of my recent archaeological work has been in the Pacific area of Nicaragua, along the shore of the lakes, looking for evidence of this migration and colonization in Nicaragua by people from central Mexico, specifically from Cholula.
Well, tell me a little bit more about Cholula. I guess give me a little bit of your history synopsis.
Okay. Cholula is continuously occupied for about 3,000 years. The earliest archaeological evidence we have dates to about 1,000 before the Common Era. Earliest evidence of monumental construction dates to about 500 before the Common Era.
Okay, so it's
And
1,000
that
years old,
pyramid
basically.
continued to expand with subsequent layers, one over the top of another, pretty much up until the present. So there is a major Catholic church on top of the pyramid that was built in the 18th century, and it continues to be an important pilgrimage center.
That's amazing. So you say that the oldest evidence of this site, the oldest history, goes back to about 500 years. What is the oldest datable
I thought Cholula was those little cinnamon rolls thing you could get at Taco Bell. Yeah, that's about my understanding of archaeology as well. Don't worry.
material record that you guys have found at the site?
Dates to about 500
500 BC,
before the
yes.
Common Era. Yes, we base that on ceramics that we can use for relative dating, as well as radiocarbon dating. And the oldest radiocarbon date that we have from Cholula currently is about 800 BCE.
Wow, that's amazing. In the Ancient Apocalypse show, Graham Hancock implies that the history of the site may be far older than is currently agreed upon. What would you have to say to this claim?
Well, far older is a rather vague term. How old is he talking about? I know he's wanting to push things back to 12,000 BC. No way that human occupation far back in Cholula itself. There are some remains that have been found in the basin of Mexico. For example, a woolly mammoth butchering site has some pretty early dates, but these are hunter-gatherers that were basically
Yeah, so not several civilizations is the point.
hunting big game, and there's limited information about that. Cholula itself was located on the shore of a shallow lake or a lagoon, and it would have been a likely spot for big game to have been there.
So is it confirmed that there would have been some sort of human presence in Mexico around that 12,000 years ago date? Because I know that we, recently with discoveries like the White Sands footprints and whatnot, we've been able to trace the, population of North America back, 23,000 years or some odd. So is it correct to assume that there were people in this area at the time, however, they just weren't creating these enormous structures as Graham Hancock seems to imply?
That's correct. There were certainly people there, hunter-gatherers.
And now you mentioned that Cholula is built along the remains of an ancient lakeshore. Do you believe that that is the reason why Cholula was located where it was, or is there some other sort of significance of this site that is theorized why people began to build here?
Well, I think that the ecological setting was very important. I think it was an area with an abundance of plants and animals. Why the pyramid was built where it is, we've got to...
It's like, you think back in the day, the humans were like playing Minecraft. You know, when you're going in the open world, you're trying to find a place for a house? That's how they, that's how they were. They're like, we gotta find a good spot. Well, this one, I don't think this forest is too icy, but there's not enough animals here. So genuinely, they were like in Minecraft when you're trying to find the right spot. So that probably explains why a lot of places are where they were.
A couple of lines of evidence that go with that. The pyramid was built...
So they spawned there? No, because migration. So a lot of people would spawn in shitty spawns, as it happens in Minecraft. And then they would go to other places because that spawn wasn't good enough for them. So that's why there's so much human migration and moving across the globe, because sometimes your spawn point is just not the best one.
Over the top of a spring.
And then they find
so
a village, and then they trade emeralds with the villagers, and the villagers go, and then there would be an iron golem.
Bubbles up from its base. Currently, there is a well that has been built going down.
The iron golem built the pyramids. Final answer.
down from the side of the pyramid down into the water table. Also, the pyramid was built on an
I mean, imagine in a village as big as ancient Egypt, they would have had so many iron golems. Okay, the bigger the Minecraft village, they get more golems. So in a village as big as ancient Egypt, bro, there would be so many iron golems to build the pyramids.
orientation, so it faces the setting sun at summer solstice. So essentially that would be the longest day of the year. And as the pyramid grew up, it would have been illuminated with the last rays of the sun on the longest day of the year, probably with some solar worship functions to
That's
it.
how you know humans were bored without the iPhone, because they had to like worry about stuff like when the sun on the solstice hits the pyramid.
Wow, that's amazing. Throughout the course of the show, there's some evidence that Graham Hancock gives that comes from primary documents. What is the written records of this site like, whether it be from, indigenous authors or whether it be from, Spanish colonizers?
Well, especially relating to the so-called Cholula massacre of 1519, there are many different accounts, so about a dozen. Some written in Spanish, some written in the Aztec language, and some simply depictions in the pictographic style of the native peoples. So we have good information about that, but we also have a number of Spanish chroniclers, and they were using indigenous informants to fill out the ancient history. So we have actual accounts as well as myths that were reported. One of the things that we have from Cholula is an account of the building of the pyramid, which occurred in sort of the third age of man. The chronicler Ixtlilxochitl wrote that there were 5 different suns or ages in the history of Mexico. And it was during the third age that the Great Pyramids were being built. And Ixtlilxochitl describes these.
I low-key feel bad reacting to this video now or that, because like it's very interesting and I'm very captivated, but also I have nothing to add. So if I'm only pausing to respond to chat and say little jokes, it's because that's all I have to add. There's nothing I can add here. There's nothing I can add here. I'm too stupid. I'm too stupid for transformative content. The only way I can transform the content is make it funny.
Is being built by a race of giants, Kinamet-Tanime.
It's the goal! The iron golems! The iron golems are coming back!
Out of that comes another tradition of a giant known as Shelwa, and this is the one that Hancock was referring to. In fact, the story of Shelwa dates to the 19th century, so about 400 years after the conquest, and has relatively little historical grounding.
Really? So
Yeah.
do we know where
I mean, yeah, it's fanfic. Of course you want to write about cool
this
giants.
story arose from? Is this a misinterpretation of an older story, or is it a complete fabrication?
Well, it seems to be a conglomeration of several different stories, and probably ultimately based on these Kinamet-Tanime. But the name Shelwa that Hancock was using really has no basis.
I mean, the most common folk stories said from mouth to mouth in Romania were literally about a guy, a prince, that has to marry 3 daughters from the other prince, from the other king's kingdom, but like he has to travel, and then he meets a guy that only has one eye and sees everything, a guy that has to eat everything, and a guy that has to drink all the water, and then a bald guy is the villain and wants to kill him, and there's like, I don't even think there's dragons in Romania. There's not dragons. Why are the bad guys in the Harapal? It's the bald guy. And then the king has like some crazy test where like, oh, you must survive in this room, and then he sets the room on fire. But then the water guy, he drinks the fire or something like that. And then like, that's the average story from Romania. It doesn't mean it's true. It's just the stories. I do think there were giants in those as well.
However,
And
in
bold
the
men.
later 20th century, people were trying to sort of reinvent this tradition. And so there is a statue in Cholula dedicated to Shelwa. And
That's
while
cool.
we were filming
That's
the
so
program,
cool.
I explained to Hancock that it had relatively little historical significance. He insisted on
Yeah,
going
it's
there
like
and
a
making
fictional character.
yeah.
Guy Spunul, exactly. But I'm not gonna say that to these stupid non-Romanians that don't know Romanian. Doesn't mean anything to them.
filming that and including that in the program. This is a modern statue that was made of Shelwa, who Hancock was claiming was the giant that built the pyramid.
Wow, that is such an interesting piece of context there. Because I think that
so I thought his claim was just an ancient civilization before the Ice Age. I didn't think he was giant territory.
a theme that we see reoccur through this show is the idea that archaeologists and anthropologists are opposed to the idea of analyzing folklore as, holding some sort of, truth behind it. As a professional archaeologist, what is your opinion on using folklore within your field?
Well, I think we have to use everything we can, but with a critical eye. Obviously, histories in the past as well as in the present are written with a specific purpose in mind. Sometimes it is to glorify, the victor, sometimes to glorify some other element or to denigrate certain characteristics. We just have to be very critical of that. There's nuggets out there that are important, and these stories can add some life to the stories that we try to tell.
Absolutely, very well said. I like that. How do you feel about the way that archaeology as a field was portrayed throughout the series Ancient Apocalypse?
Well, there's been a lot of debate about that, and the Society for American Archaeology, among others, has written letters to Netflix saying that it was not a balanced presentation. I see that Graham recently responded.
Yeah,
to that
Netflix
as well.
doesn't care,
So
man.
the debate goes on. I was pleased to have the opportunity to go on the show and talk about Cholula.
Oh, he was on the
partly because
show.
I'm setting up a new project. We hope to be starting later this month, and to get a free ticket to go to Cholula and talk to my colleagues was was nice.
Absolutely.
I'm here to see this Krongler. Please stop calling me that.
At the time that Netflix contacted me, they asked if I would be interested in discussing the Great Pyramid of Cholula, and they didn't tell me that it was Graham Hancock that was going to be involved.
Really?
It was only after I had agreed.
Oh my God! They didn't even tell him. They just Netflix just told him, "Hey, you want to discuss the pyramids?" And he's like, "Heck yeah, I want." And I was like, "Well, actually, it's to portray you badly for a documentary about a pseudoscientist."
And they said, "Oh, by the way, this is how this is going to go down."
That's interesting.
And they did it very hesitantly because there is quite a bit of friction between the archaeological establishment and Hancock and other pseudo-archaeology practitioners. It didn't bother me. I mean, I've taught classes on what we call fringe archaeology or fantastic archaeology, things like that. And obviously, Graham Hancock.
That's a nice
was
word
part
to
of
put it
that.
with.
I think that it's an important role for archaeologists to confront that in a reasoned fashion. There are some of us in our discipline
Again, 2 seconds to make a lie, 2 hours to disprove it.
that are a little bit more rabid about this than I am. But it's popularizing archaeology and popularizing the past, and I think that's to all of our benefit. But I think that there are lots of good stories to tell without having to go down the rabbit hole that of Atlantis and lost civilizations that are fantastic.
Yeah, I completely agree. One of the things that really stood out to me after watching the show is
You know what I do think has to be real? Dragons, chat. Dragons. There's just too many depictions of dragons. Like in all civilizations, there's always dragons. There has to be dragons. Like, do humans just unanimously think of a flying lizard that spits fire? Just imagine dragons, chat. Just imagine dragons. I guess they all imagined dragons back then, bro. Otherwise, what's the Oh God, I wish there was dragons.
it really made me realize how much I would love to have seen a show that talks about all the places that
Were the scales, bones, and teeth? Well, the thing is, when dragons die, they set themselves ablaze. That's why there's no bones, scales, or teeth. Because dragon fire is so powerful that it can burn bone. And when a dragon dies, they ignite. So that's why there's no trace of the dragons. But the humans saw them.
Hancock did, but in a more, factual sense, I suppose. But I really commend the fact that you were, despite the fact that it was, Graham Hancock conducting the interview, still willing to do this. Do you think that if you had known that it was Graham Hancock off the bat, you would have either gone into this with some reservations or changed your decision to conduct this interview entirely?
No, I was happy to have the opportunity to meet him and discuss it with him. He's a charming man. I enjoyed meeting him very much. We had very good conversations. I wish we could have chatted longer. He had a list of 20 questions for me. It was like taking my doctoral exams all over again. And they were good questions, and he clearly.
It was killing me not to type because my coworker was looking at my screen and what you managed to muster is, what about Dragon D's? You thought I was gonna fall for that? You thought I was gonna try to follow Dragon D's nuts?
Read my answers and incorporated it into what he was thinking. But once my time was done, the producer cleverly made me go to a different part of the site, at which point Hancock sat down and gave his, sort of his spin to it. And I didn't have any idea what that was going to.
So he didn't even discuss it in front of him.
What he was saying until I actually saw the program.
He just said, okay, say what you think, and then I'm just gonna say what I think and disprove it, but you're not allowed to be there and contradict me in real time. You're not allowed to. I have to have the last word.
Yes, in watching the, through all of the professionals who talked throughout the series, how much of their actual words and their opinions were truly represented throughout the show.
The archaeologists from Malta, for example, seemed to be quite unhappy with the way their interviews were twisted. I felt that they did a very fair job with my interviews. I thought it was
this man's too humble.
Relatively well. I wish I had more airtime, just because I want to be that much more famous. But no, I wish I had been able to have a more in-depth discussion with Mr. Hancock at the time.
If you had one thing to give to anyone who has watched this show, what would you want to say to them?
That there are lost civilizations out there, places that we haven't fully explored, haven't fully understood, but you don't have to, drink the Kool-Aid to find those. There's real good archaeology out there that has exciting stories to tell. And then to my
leave it to Americans to have literal sayings about a branded drink.
Archaeological colleagues, we need to get better at telling those stories to make it as compelling as Graham Hancock's stories are.
I'd like to give a massive thank you to Dr.
Yeah, that's the thing, because the reality will never be as fantastical and interesting. I mean, not even interesting, as glamorized as the fake stories. Obviously, giants are cooler than pulley systems, obviously. Obviously a giant guy walking around is so much cooler than putting a thing on a wheel with the wood and dragging it around.
For agreeing to join us for this series. It's always really refreshing and exciting to talk to someone who just really knows what they're talking about. So I hope my excitement was palpable. And now we get to my favorite part. Graham Hancock begins listing all the similarities between all these different pyramids.
It's a reference to a cult that died by drinking poison Kool-Aid. Leave it to Americans to have a saying about referencing a cult that died by drinking poison Kool-Aid.
Graham Hancock shows us the pyramid.
And also leave it to an American cult to commit mass suicide, not with wine or anything like that, but with Kool-Aid.
Lula and the, terraced hill at Gunung Padang, or in Graham Hancock's words, the pyramid. And he makes one of the boldest claims that he makes throughout this entire series. The fact that these ancient structures, whose builders supposedly had no contact with one another, have so many things in common, remains a mystery. No, Graham Hancock, it does not. This crops up all the time in these archaeological conspiracy theories. The idea that multiple parts of the world have pyramids and therefore must have either been, taught by aliens or Atlanteans, or there was some master plan which taught all of them how to make pyramids. But thankfully Graham Hancock doesn't. In there, he goes on to give us a list of different pyramids that are all part of this, master plan of his. Graham Hancock's pyramid...
He was 900 people. Jesus! 1,000 people drank the Kool-Aid? Wait, but did they know? Or was it sneaked? Were they all indoctrinated and they're yeah, I'm going with these. Some knew, some didn't. Oh my god. The most fucked up part is for those who didn't. Yes, they knew. If at least if they all knew, it's still fucked up, but natural selection, okay? But the ones that didn't are the ones that I feel bad for.
Extravaganza. All right, now let's have a look at all of these pyramids. And you might be thinking to yourself, Miley, you can't be serious. Are you telling me that this guy thinks
That one's so cool. I've never saw that one before, but that one's so cool.
That all of these pyramids are related to one another? Yes, that is exactly what I am telling you. But how do you know that? How do you know? Maybe he's just suggesting that there could be a master plan. Oh, well, he goes on to say, is this a coincidence? I don't think so. Which...
Oh my god, did he really? There is no such thing as a coincidence. If you are watching this video right now, it is because you and I are psychedelically connected.
Sounds a lot to me like he's saying that these things are all related to one another, so I'm gonna treat it as such. Yet again, this could be your very first archaeology class, and you would need no more context to be able to tell me that those pyramids have very little in common with one another. Now, you may remember in the first lesson on episode 1, we specifically quoted what Graham Hancock's definition of a pyramid is, and I think it would be very interesting to apply it to this list. Jesus, I'm running out of room. A series of terraces that rises to a summit. Huh. Looks like the Great Pyramid of Giza isn't a pyramid then, Graham. Hilariously, if we are to use Graham Hancock's definition of a pyramid, the Ziggurat at Ur, the Great Pyramid of Giza, and the Meroe pyramids would all not be pyramids.
Because they're bricks.
You just can't make this shit up. Now, obviously, I'm being a little bit facetious here. All of these are pyramids. Graham Hancock agrees that all of these are pyramids. I'm just trying to show that this definition's really, really bad. But anyway, there's about a million things that are different between these. Some of them have steps to the top. Some of them don't. So what is it exactly that Graham Hancock uses to tie all of these pyramids together? Well, he says that all of these periods. He says that all of these pyramids are universally associated with very specific spiritual beliefs, or spiritual...
Is Bro gonna claim that the fact that there's religion is a proof of ancient civilization? Because isn't that more into like psychology? I feel like that leads more into psychology, that in human psychology, all these ancient humans, like that, the fact that humans that they don't understand something are prone to make up a supernatural reason for it, which is why I think every civilization pretty much had religions, because ancient humans didn't understand a lot of things, so they would like create a reason for it. And that's just a universal human behavior, which is why you have different religions between people that never met each other, right?
Ideas, rather. If I'm doing the air quotes, I may as well quote him correctly. Which technically is true. But the problem, and the thing that he doesn't say, which is the most important part of this, is that all of those spiritual beliefs are so wildly different from one another. Let me break this down. The Pyramid of Giza, the Ziggurat at Ur, and the Meroe pyramids are all burial structures.
Like, yeah, I think humans just like feel a need to find some sort of spiritual belief when they don't really have a deep understanding of the stuff. That's why it's only now in the modern age that atheism is ever rising, you know, because there's so much science that pretty much everything is like pretty much explained. So there's a lot more people that are like, oh, that makes sense, so I don't think there's a God. But because like up until this modern age, right, there was like basically no atheism, wasn't there? Like, everyone has some sort of religion. Or at least agnosticism. Yeah, the thing is, I don't know the differences. And I'm definitely not, like, one of those Reddit atheists that are like, you're a Christian, gross. I don't think I know what I am. I don't really think about this subject a lot, ever. But I guess that shows that I'm not religious, the fact that I don't think about it. Because a good religious person probably does think about it. But, you know, it's... I don't know.
Each one of these pyramids was designed to have the dead interred in it, or be some sort of memorial for the deceased. Now, Cahuachi, El Tajin, and Chichen Itza are all ceremonial pyramids. I don't really know, what does a ceremony look like? We're gonna just do the sun. Cahuachi is a pyramid that was designed to make offerings in regards to agriculture.
That looks nothing like the other ones.
Of a huge ceremonial complex that includes multiple buildings and ball courts. And Chichen Itza...
Agnostic believes there may or may not be a god, but that humans can't prove either. Ah! That's what I am! Wait, that's perfect! I never knew that was what I meant. I thought it was just another word for atheist. Yeah, that's me.
Was a sacred site for Quetzalcoatl, the Mayan feathered serpent. Fun fact, Chichen Itza was actually designed so if you stand at the top and clap, it sounds like the chirping of a bird. Pretty neat. Doesn't really have anything to do with this video, but I thought...
That's cool. And a lot of atheists are all about believing the science, which is an oxymoron opposed to the very concept. I don't think you can compare believing the science to believing in something like a god. Like, I see what you're trying to do, but I don't think it's the gotcha you think it is. I do agree some atheists can get very annoying, and they should never like harass people for stuff as long as they're not harassing you for what you believe. But I also don't think that's the gotcha you think it is, because science is arguably more believable than religion. I think a little bit, at least. Like, I don't think all science negates certain religious stuff. Like, I don't think every science negates divinity, but I do think it's very interesting that humans have progressed the scientific realm, or even this Milo making the video. You know, like, science is fact-based is the whole point. You know, you don't believe in science. You just, it's like, it's fact-based. You know, it's like, they find stuff out and they date the skeletons. That's why it's like, again, 1 second to make up a lie, to 1 year to disprove it. Like, taking the carbon data and dating that. That's not just belief. That's just the advancement. I'm a Christian and still believe in science. Exactly. They don't negate each other. I don't think that's the gotcha you think it is. But I do agree. Some people are very, very annoying for no reason. I think it's bad. I think whether you believe or not, it's bad if you harass other people with it. You know, like, I think that's it. That's the line. Just don't harass other people with what you believe or don't believe. And no, there are people who literally put no critical thought into it. They read an article, they believe. Yeah, if I read an article and attached to the article is the name of a human being who I can verifiably see that has been through school for scientific stuff and is verified as someone who knows the stuff, I will take that, because the great thing about humans is that we don't have to know everything ourselves. We have a lot of other humans who have dedicated their whole lives to studying stuff. Like, for example, watching this video, Biologic, I shouldn't believe a single word that Milo says, because I haven't personally done architect studies. But I think that's a very dumb way to view it. Like, that's a very skeptical way to view it, to not trust anything your fellow men have discovered. Like, I trust that this man has the knowledge to disprove these things. You know.
Now, the astute of you are noticing a theme here. What do the Pyramid of Giza, the Ziggurat at Ur, and the Meroe pyramids all have in common? And on the flip side, what do Cahuachi, El Tajin, and Chichen Itza all have in common? These are all in North Africa and the Near East. Interesting, isn't it? Now, I wonder if we're gonna see a theme with, I don't know, the other 3 pyramids he chose. Oh my god, would you look at that? South America and Central America. Wow. What do you know? You know, that seems like a pretty interesting detail that he probably should have
that are all over
included instead of saying just ceremonial purposes. So yes, obviously every single one of these pyramids was designed with a specific ritual purpose in mind, but each one of these rituals was really different from one another.
Yeah.
So to say that they are all the same because they are associated with similar ritual purposes is such a misleading statement, because you can literally divide all of these into different cultural regions based on the things that they were designed to do, which again is just such a fascinating archaeological concept to look at. You can literally see how these ideas spread and like disseminated through the parts of the world where they arose. The fact that South America associated pyramids with ceremony and celebration, whereas North Africa and the Near East associated it with death rituals.
Yeah.
Once you know what these pyramids were actually
That's
used
like
for,
the
you
opposite use.
are able to completely dismantle everything that
One's the funeral house, one's the party house. How are you gonna say that's the same purpose?
Hancock says, which is probably why he didn't tell you that. God, I don't even want to say he's only telling half the story. He's barely even telling the story. And now the most obvious one, and the one which is always the perfect argument when talking about pyramids, is that it is just the best way to stack rocks. You got 4 sides and it goes up You really can't beat that. And to say
Yeah, stacking rocks in a perfect square is so hard. You know, if you're gonna stack rocks, you're gonna eventually end up at a tip the more higher you go.
all of these cultures in different parts of the world needed someone to come teach them how to do it is pretty belittling. Don't know how he didn't see that. Just hilarious how he tries to push this idea of being like, the ancients were so much more complex than we thought. And then it's like, well, did they stack up those rocks on their own? No. They needed people to come from Atlantis to teach them to do that one. Oh man, that looks nice.
Yeah, it's like, oh, the stupid ancient civilizations we know about were so stupid and useless, which is why there was actually another secret ancient civilization that we don't know about that could do that. You don't get it. The ancient civilizations that we do know about that were there, they were not advanced because there was another one. Like, why not just accept that the people that were? Like, you already have your ancient advanced civilization. It's there. They managed to make the pyramids. They were advanced. There we go. Ancient advanced civilization. But no, only because it's documented, you need to find something that you think you found. I truly think this whole fake science is a desire that people want to be remembered as someone who discovered a big thing. But because we have so much data and so much research interesting and pretty much like the important things have been discovered, they'll make some shit up that even though it doesn't matter, that is basically the same as something that's already been discovered. They'll just be like, no, those people that did build the pyramids, they didn't. They're stupid. There's actually these other people that I found out about that these people actually built them. Yeah.
Bummed I have to erase this. I hate my job. All right, turn to the next page. Bazinga.
What do you mean? Erasing a blackboard is the best thing ever.
Texcoco is a 15th century Aztec pool complex. It would have pulled water from a spring, channeled it through many aqueducts, and created a lush mountaintop full of gardens and baths and wading pools and whatnot. And like many of the things that the ancients did, it was really impressive. The Aztecs were highly...
Okay, but without the Atlanteans? Exactly, that is the logical conclusion. Because in that case, then if the Atlanteans built the pyramids, but then wait. I don't think the Atlanteans were advanced enough. I think there was another ancient civilization behind the Atlanteans. And that's how you end up at aliens, man.
Proficient with irrigation systems, and it shows at this site. Now, thankfully, Graham Hancock spends the last half of this episode telling us the unique cultural history of this site. Oh, wait. No, he actually doesn't do that. Never mind. Now, Graham Hancock's claim about Texcoco is that it is much older than archaeologists want to tell us. Thankfully, he has done tens of years of studies into this site, dedicated millions of dollars of research, and been able to publish many papers proving his hypothesis. Oh, wait, hold on. No, he looked at a rock. Graham Hancock goes there with another guy, and they look at a rock, and they're like, this rock is way more weathered than it would be if it was carved in the 15th century, and therefore this site must predate all of that, which is just a really bad argument. There is something to be said for using the erosion on rocks to be able to date a site, but typically that only works when you really know what the original state of the rock was. But the
Theory and science has different context.
when you're looking
I'm not going to pretend to understand what this means in context. But thank you for your insight.
at an enormous boulder is you have no idea what the original state was. You don't know how long it's been there. You don't know any of its history, and you're just looking at it and being like, yep, looks a little crusty to me. Must have been Atlantis. Towards the end of this episode, he starts talking more about mythology. He talks about Quetzalcoatl, the Mayan feathered serpent. He talks about Prometheus. He talks about Maui. He talks about, I don't know, Frank Zappa, all the civilizing heroes, you know. After this, Graham Hancock and Marco Vagato, they go to another place called Xochicalco. Did I spell that right? I don't think I spelled that right. Damn, I need to stop doubting myself. I'm pretty sure I've gotten all of these right so far. Xochicalco is a 7th century temple, and it has...
At least the places going to are beautiful, man. Maybe this is all an excuse to get a paid vacation to beautiful sites, man. Maybe he doesn't even believe it. He just wanted a good paid vacation.
Depictions of the Quetzalcoatl feathered serpent are on the outside of it. The reason why
is he claiming that thing was real?
And Hancock go to this site is to prove that the folklore is true. Quetzalcoatl allegedly arrived from the sea on a raft of serpents and, you know, came and civilized everyone.
So wait, is the ancient civilization not made of humans in his hypothesis? Because I've assumed it's made of humans, at least. But it feels like in some cases, like, yeah, they were ancient humans. In other cases, like, no, actually, it was ancient serpents. But only in this one place. Only in this one place was an ancient serpent. In other places, it was that one giant.
And so they prove that this actually happened by going to a temple dedicated to Quetzalcoatl and looking at the carving of Quetzalcoatl on the outside. I think I'm going to convert religions. So even if that is what this carving actually depicts, that would be like walking to literally any cultural interpretation or piece of art and taking it at face value.
That's like walking to the cinema, seeing a statue of the Hulk and being like, whoa! The Hulk is real, guys! The Hulk is real! This is... like in the future, the civilizations will find statues of the Hulk, and there will be a pseudoscientist in the future that'll be like, you see, the Avengers were real. That is why there were so many movies documenting them. You think the Avengers were fiction, but in reality, they were real. Look at this. We found a statue of the Hulk outside of this. So this tells us that back in the day, these pesky humans, the way they built these skyscrapers was with the help of the Hulk, because they wouldn't have been able to do it by themselves.
So next time you go to an art museum, remember that every single thing in it is a fact. The thesis is that this temple is a chronicle of the events that happened when the Younger Dryas impact happened.
Guys, I'm about to draw you pregnant, and it's gonna be a fact, man. According to Hancock, it's gonna be a fact.
Despite this temple being built, 8,000 years after this event, I'm done with this one. So let's do a quick recap of what Graham Hancock has proven in this episode.
Nothing.
Are we all on the same page? Write that down. It will be on the test. Next page, lesson 3, Sirius Rising.
Okay, I don't see part 2. I don't have watching part 2 in me. I don't have watching part 2 in me right now. But damn, I'm not taking the test. The real reason I'm not watching part 2 is because I think that's where the test is gonna be. I'm too scared. I'm gonna fail the test. Okay, I'm scared I'm gonna fail the test. I'm just a chud little bat. I can't take the test. You think no? No, I didn't. No, I didn't. In the learn nothing. I learned that we're in an ice age, bro. I don't know about you. That's what I learned. And also, that I have to piss right now. So, yeah. Chad, be honest. Do you think me being a silly little bat takes away or enhances the experience of watching these videos? This is a peer review time. Peer review. Enhances. Beautiful. 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 Both. What do you mean both? What do you mean both? What do you mean both? I feel light and jolly. When the winter outside is rifled, and the fire is so delightful, and this is no place to go. And let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Let's watch! 9 minutes of crazy VTuber clips.
Pro
Believe it or
tip,
not,
if you
I'm a
ever meet
VTuber.
conspiracy theorist or anything
Shut up!
like
I'm
that,
filming
all
a
you gotta do
video!
is out
I gotta do it
crazy
over.
them.
I gotta do it
They
over again.
say
I gotta do
we
it over
never
again. I
walked
gotta
on
do
the
it over again.
moon. You
gotta
fire
do it
back.
over again.
Poofed.
I
You
gotta do it
still
over.
believe in the moon. They say aliens built the pyramids. You reply, the pyramids on the earth or the ones underground?